Welcome back students to today's English class. Today we will be doing a lesson from Standard 10th English, The Night I Met Einstein by Jerome Wiedemann. Let us know a little bit more about the writer Jerome Wiedemann. Jerome Wiedemann was an American novelist and playwright. He was born on 4th April 1913, and in his illustrious career he has written 22 novels, many volumes of short stories, several plays and screenplays, and in 1986 his own memoir Praying for Rain. He has also received many awards, among which are the Pulitzer Prize for Drama and a Tony for the same theatre play Fiorello. Among his other stage dramas are also The Tenderloin. Jerome Wiedemann has written many books, among which the titles of some are A Family Fortune, Last Respects, The Temple, Other People's Money, Praying for Rain, The Sound of Bow Bells, The Enemy Camp, What's in It for Me, 4th Street East, Tiffany Street. So let's start the lesson, The Night I Met Einstein. When I was a very young man, I was invited to dine at the house of a philanthropist. After a wonderful dinner, our hostess took us to a large drawing room. Chairs were being arranged. I'm arranging the chairs for a concert, my hostess said. We are going to listen to a very good pianist. Though everyone else was very happy, I was not. I did not understand classical music. I thought I was tone deaf. I sat down so that I would not be impolite and waited for the concert to begin. I did not pay attention to the music after it began. After a while, I heard everyone clapping, so I realized that the piece was over. Just then, I heard a gentle but firm voice saying, "You're fond of Bach?" Let's look at the new words that have been introduced to us here. Philanthropist means a person who promotes the welfare of others by the generous donation of money to good causes. A rich man who donates money. Concert is a musical performance given in public by several performers or of several compositions. Tone deaf. A person who is unable to hear the difference between high and low notes of music. So here we find that the writer, as a young man, had once been invited for dinner to a rich man's house. And after the dinner, which he enjoyed thoroughly, the hostess invited everybody to the drawing room where they were arranging for a concert of a very good pianist. On hearing this, everybody else was very happy. However, the writer was not, for he claimed that he did not understand classical music. Classical music is music that is produced without the use of any lyrics or words, just by playing the musical instruments. And so the writer thought that he never understood the variations or the differences in the high and the low notes of music, and hence he considered himself to be tone deaf. And however, he did not want to be rude or impolite, and so he sat down along with the others and waited for the concert to begin. He did not pay attention to the music as it did not interest him. After a while, he realized that everybody had started clapping, and so he thought that it must have become over. And just then, he heard his neighbor talking to him in a gentle but firm voice saying, "You're fond of Bach?" That is, he questioned him whether he was fond of Bach. Bach was the performer's music, the musical piece had been played just now. Let us continue with the further part of the story. I knew as much about Bach as I did about nuclear physics. I was going to say something ordinary so that I could get out of the situation. I turned in order to look at my neighbor, and I saw a very famous face. It was someone with a shock of white hair and a pipe. I knew that I must tell this man the truth. He looked at me as if my answer was very important. I do not know anything about Bach, I said. I have never heard any of his music. He looked surprised. You have never heard of Bach? He asked. He made it sound as if I had said that I had never taken a bath. I'd like to understand music so that I could understand Bach, I said. But I am not able to. I am tone deaf. Let us look at some of the new words or new names that we have come across in this part. Bach. Bach was full name was Johann Sebastian Bach. He was a German organist and composer of music from the 17th century. Then we come across the term nuclear physics, which is the physics of atomic nuclei, that is the nucleus in the atom, and the interactions, especially how nuclear energy is generated from this atom, the nucleus of the atom. That is what we learn in nuclear physics. Now we know that after the composition was over, everybody started clapping, and that is when the writer realized that the piece had become over, and he also started looking at the audience, and he was suddenly interrupted by a question from his neighbor asking, do you like Bach? And hence he says that I knew much about Bach as I did about nuclear physics. Here he means to say that he did not know anything about Bach, neither does he know anything about nuclear physics. And so accordingly he wanted to say something very ordinary, something very simple to his neighbor, and he turned to look at his neighbor and was shocked because he found a very famous face, and it was somebody with white hair, shocking white hair, and who always had a pipe with him. Now this famous man that he met, somehow the writer felt that he must tell him the truth, and also the neighbor looked at him as if the answer was very important, and so he told him the truth that I do not know anything about Bach, and and also that he had never heard any of his music. To which the neighbor replied surprisedly that you have never heard of Bach, and he made it sound as if he had never taken a bath. And hence we find that the writer said that he tried to prove himself by saying that I'd like to learn more about Bach, I'd like to understand his music, but what to do? I'm tone deaf, I'm unable to understand the variations in the music. So he tried to defend himself by saying that I am tone deaf, I am actually not able to understand the variations, so I was not able to enjoy the piece as much as everybody, and I did not clap for the composition or for the concert as everybody else had enjoyed and clapped. Let's see what happens after this. Let's go ahead with the lesson. The old man got up. You will come up with me? He asked. I just remained seated. I am requesting you to come with me, he said again. So I went up with him. He took me to a room which had a gramophone in it and asked, what kind of music do you like? Well, I answered, I like songs that have words and the kind of music where I can follow the tune. He smiled and nodded, obviously pleased. You can give me an example, perhaps? Let us look at the new word that has been introduced, gramophone, which is a machine used for playing recorded music. In olden days, people used to use the gramophone to listen to recorded music. So here we find that from the previous part, when the writer said that he was stone deaf, immediately the old man got up, the neighbor. He got up and he asked the writer to come with him. But the writer did not wish to go with him and he remained seated. To which the old man said that he was requesting him to come with him. And after much request, we find that the writer agreed and he went up with him. And the old man took him to a room which had a gramophone in it and asked him what kind of music he liked, with what kind of music did he prefer. And the writer said that he liked to listen to songs that had words and lyrics, where he could follow the tune, maybe a simple tune. To which the old man smiled and nodded to show his agreement, that and to show that he was pleased with that kind of music. And he asked him that, can you tell me your preference, or can you give me an example? So here we find that the old man is trying to get the writer's attention to music. He will not take the answer of the writer that he was tone deaf, and he says that, let me try to help you out. And we find the old man is trying to help the writer understand music. Let's continue further. I told him I like anything by Bing Crosby. At once I could hear Bing Crosby's voice filling the room. Now, can you please tell me what you just heard? He said. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines, so I sang it back to him. He smiled. You're not tone deaf, he said. I told him this was one of my favorite songs, something I had heard hundreds of times, so it didn't really prove anything. Nonsense, said Einstein. It proves everything. Do you remember your first arithmetic lesson in school? Suppose that at your very first contact with numbers, your teacher had ordered you to work out a problem in, say, long division of fractions. Could you have done it? Now, the new word or the new person that we have come to know here is Bing Crosby, who was an American singer and an actor. Okay, so here we find that the neighbor and or Einstein had asked him that, could you please give me an example as to what kind of music do you like? And here the writer had answered him that anything that was sung by Bing Crosby, and immediately Bing Crosby's voice filled the room. And after listening to that music, after listening to that song for some time, the neighbor or Einstein asked the writer to tell him what he had just heard. And so the writer, who was accustomed to sing the song earlier, sang it back to him. And on hearing him singing it, Einstein smiled and said that you are not tone deaf, that he was not tone deaf. And also the writer interjected that it was one of his favorite songs, and something that he had heard hundreds of times, and which is why he was able to sing it back. And so that didn't really prove anything. That didn't really prove that he may like classical music. To which Einstein said that that is nonsense, and he says that it can prove everything, because he asked him to remember when he had learnt arithmetic for the first time, his first arithmetic lesson in school. And he said that if your teacher had when you had come into contact with numbers, if your teacher had taught you complex problems like long division or fractions, would he have been able to do it? He leaves him with a question that, could you do a long division fraction if for the first time itself the teacher had given you that question? Moving ahead. No, of course not. Exactly. It's like learning maths. You have to learn addition and subtraction in order to do multiplication and division. Now, I am playing something a little more advanced. It was John McCormack singing The Trumpeter. Sing that back, he ordered. And we went on from level to higher level until he was playing just music without words. I was amazed that this great man was paying complete attention to me so that I could learn something new. It was as if I was the most important person in his world. Suddenly, he got up and turned off the gramophone. Now, young man, he said, we are ready to listen to Bach. We went down and sat in the hall. Just allow yourself to listen, he said. That's all there is to it. The new person we become aware of in this particular part is John McCormack, who was an Irish American singer in the early 20th century. So here we find that the writer says that of course he could never learn long divisions of fractions at the first go. And here we find that Einstein is comparing learning math to learning music also. And he says that before one would learn addition, but one would learn multiplication or division, it was important for the person to learn addition and subtraction. And then he told him that he would be playing something more advanced in music as well, now that he had heard Bing Crosby. And hence he played the next track, that was John McCormack's The Trumpeter. And he now ordered the writer to sing it back. And we find that slowly and slowly the writer also became aware of music, okay, and the level went on increasing from level to higher level until he reached a point where he could enjoy music without words also. And this event amazed the writer so much that why is this great man paying so much attention to me so that I could learn something new. And he says that he felt as if he was the most important person in Einstein's world. And when he had come to that level, when he had started enjoying music without words, Einstein suddenly got up and told the young man that you are now ready to listen to Bach. And they both went down and sat in the hall and he instructed him, just allow yourself to listen and you will understand everything there is. Let's see what happens in the next part. I have heard that piece many times since that day, but I am never alone. I am sitting beside a small man with a shock of untidy hair and a pipe in his mouth. He has eyes that are unusually warm. When the concert ended, I too was able to clap sincerely. Our hostess came towards us. We both stood up. I am so sorry, Dr. Einstein, she said, giving me a cold look, that you miss so much. I am sorry too, he said. My young friend here and I, however, were engaged in the greatest activity of which a human being is capable. She looked puzzled. Really? She said. And what is that? Einstein smiled and put his arm across my shoulders, opening up the frontiers of beauty. Frontiers means borders. Now, after coming down to enjoy Bach, both of them, the writer and Dr. Einstein, they both sat and they listened to Bach's music and enjoyed it. And this time the writer says that till now in my life I have heard that piece many times, but since that day, he says, whenever I listen to the music, he is never alone, because he always finds himself in the company of the small man who had sat with him and had taught him to appreciate that music and had taught him the beauty of that music. So whenever he listens to that piece, he can always find himself with Dr. Einstein, who has been shown here as a man with white hair, a shock of untidy hair, and a pipe in his mouth. And he says that his eyes are, as always, unusually warm, showing that he wants to help out anybody, and when the concert ended, it was all thanks to Einstein that the writer could clap sincerely. At the end, we find that the hostess who had arranged for the program came towards them and looked at Dr. Einstein and said that she was so sorry that they had to miss the program, giving a cold eye or look of an angry look towards the small young writer. To which Einstein replied that my friend here and I were very busy, were very engaged in the greatest activity which a human being is capable of. She looked really puzzled, because if Dr. Einstein was calling something as the greatest activity, then it would definitely be maybe to do with science or with research or something like that. She thought it like that. To which Einstein replied that I was opening up the frontiers of beauty. I was opening up the borders of beauty and helping someone see into beauty. Somebody who had been denied that beauty, somebody who had been not able to understand and appreciate the beauty of music, I was opening up the gates, I was opening up the borders, I was opening up the boundaries of beauty so that even he could see and he could really appreciate music. We may never have come across such a side of Einstein, because as we know, Einstein is a great scientist and we usually hear about him talking about science, but we would never have known that Einstein was such a great listener to music or a great lover of music as well. And here we are also introduced to this new aspect of Einstein, to this aspect of Einstein's life, where we find that he enjoyed music as also, and he also tried to help the young writer to appreciate music. So in this manner we have come to the end of the lesson, and here we find that although the writer was a very young boy, and yet we find Einstein, once he came to know that the writer didn't know anything about music, took time out, made efforts to help the writer to appreciate music. So we here see another side of his personality. With this we have come to the end of the lesson, children. Now let us look at the evaluation part of the lesson. So let us look at the evaluation. First, answer the questions. What was the entertainment arranged for by the hostess? So now here you have to write what sort of entertainment the hostess had arranged after the dinner. It's there in the text, children. You can go through it and you can write that answer easily. Next, what was the writer's reaction to classical music? So here you have to mention how he reacted. What was his reaction? Okay. Next, as far as listening is concerned, what difference do you notice between the writer and Einstein? Now here you have to mention how differently did the writer and Einstein listen to the music. What was the difference in the way they were listening, or how what was the reaction, or what was the difference in the way they listened to the music? Next question, second one, word register. List all the words from the story related to music. As you are aware, children, in this word register activity, what is done is all the words that are related to that particular word that is given from the text can be written. So for example, here we have here we have to list all the words from the story related to music. So whichever words you find in the passage which are relating to music like concert, the pianist, and maybe the name of a musical instrument, or maybe the from where the recorded music is played. So whatever you find related to music, those have to be written down here. Moving on to another word activity, which is the word chain. Now children, here the question is prepare a word chain, and then they have given you some words over there. They have given you some blanks and all to fill. And, sometimes you are given like this without any specifications, but some other times you may get a question like prepare a word chain of nouns or of adjectives or of verbs differently. So in that case, whatever is specified, you have to use that word only. Now here there is no specification, hence we can use whichever word we want. Like for example, the pianist, which ends with a T, we have to now think of a word which begins with T and ends with E. So maybe theme, which ends with an E, and so the next word is there, and then the danger, it's ending there. Now the next set of words. So we have to think of one word which ends with an R, which will come in the first blank in the second column there, the second row there, sorry. So any word which ends with an R, so it could be adore, door, rich, and now another word which begins with an H, hungry. Let's come to the third set of words, yellow. So now we have to pick up a word which begins with W, watch. So now it ends with an H, so we have to think about another word which begins with an H for the second blank. So H could be hour. So in this manner, we have to prepare a chain of words of which the last letter of the first word and the first letter of the second word are the same. They begin with they end and begin with the same word. Okay, that is what we do in this word chain activity. Let's look at the fourth activity. The fourth one, rewrite the following in indirect narration. So here we have to write the sentence in indirect speech. First one, you are not tone deaf, he said to me. Answer, he told me that I was not tone deaf. Moving on, the B one, could you have done it? Said Einstein. Einstein asked me whether I could have done it. C, sing that back, he ordered me. Answer, he ordered me to sing that back. D, he said, what kind of music do you like? D, he asked what kind of music I liked. E, I'm so sorry, Dr. Einstein, she said. She told Dr. Einstein that she was sorry. So sorry. Fifth, insert the appropriate expressions, choosing from those given after each sentence for the positive degree. I am not dash my friend. So what will the option be? Taller than, more taller, or just as tall? I am not just as tall as my friend. Second, they are dash their neighbors. As helpful as, most helpful, more helpful. They are as helpful as their neighbors. Third, no other desert in Africa is dash the Sahara Desert. No other desert. So let's look at the options. Biggest of all, nearly so big as, or bigger as. No other desert in Africa is nearly so big as the Sahara Desert. The fourth one, very few animals in the wild are dash an elephant. Let's look at the options. Exactly huger than, exactly as huge as, hugest than. Answer, very few animals in the wild are exactly as huge as an elephant. Fifth, some snacks are dash a pizza. Options, at least as tasty as, tastier as, most tasty as. Some snacks are at least as tasty as a pizza. With this, we have finished the evaluation, children. I hope you understood the lesson and the evaluation questions, how you have to answer them. We will be back with another video soon. Till then, happy learning.